get shredded, get lean, go sub 10% body fat. Is all this just an unhealthy obsession? Yes and no. This episode is brought to you by my friends at Chubbies Shorts. Their tagline is, "The weekend has arrived." And I gotta be honest, it does always feel a little bit like a weekend when I'm wearing my favorite 5.5-inch training shorts, because they have the comfort of something that you can throw on and you just forget all about. With the built-in liner, I get zero tugging, zero chafing, and zero adjusting when I've got the 4-way stretch that Chubbies has going on. They're super soft, but always supportive, and I take these things through every single movement imaginable, from cleans, Olympic lifts, squats, lunges, double unders, biking, and more. And let's not forget to mention that Chubbies come in the best color combos, all with built-in compression liners. Make sure you visit chubbies.team/MarcusPhilly. You're gonna find your favorite new shorts in a variety of colors and inseam lengths. Again, I use the 5.5-inch if you're looking to purchase what I've got. Make sure you use code MARCUS15 to get your 15% off on your first purchase. Okay, another interesting concept that I think is important that I've learned over the years is that we have two modes. We have a maintenance mode, or our set point, and we have a change mode. And this is when we push the limits outside of our body's set point. We all have a set point. And this isn't solely a biological, metabolic, or physiological set point. It's a combination of our unique genetics and the lifestyle factors that we have built habits around. This leads us to a certain body weight, a certain amount of muscle, and a certain amount of fat mass year-round. Now, going back to how I started this video, if we do the same thing over and over and over again, time will catch up with us. Modern society and the changes to technology around us will likely drive your set point further and further and further away from healthy and more towards obese and sick. That is why so many people wake up after 5 years and they wonder, how did I gain 10 pounds seemingly overnight? Our change mode, the alternative maintenance mode, is when we push our body, our minds, and habits to make progress on our health and drive our set points closer towards healthy. Now, I have found a set point that allows me to stay sub 10% body fat year round. Remember, this is a combination of my lifestyle choices, habits, genetics, and history. In order to remain here, I have to continue to practice these traits that I've outlined above, and periodically, I have to push myself in change mode to cement these practices more and more deeply. It is a challenge every single time, and I welcome the challenge of change mode in order to remind myself what I am capable of. Recently, I have been engaging in a very purposeful change mode period. I'm gonna outline what I've been doing, but essentially these are periods of 100% compliance, where I don't allow for much deviation from my plan. The outcomes are always fruitful. I always learn something and can see what I'm capable in a short period of time. How did it start? Well, I stepped on the scale after a long week of my wife being away on a trip and being solo with my kids. I had been a bit more stressed than usual and wasn't feeling happy with my own body and gym progress. I also had been out of the pattern of stepping on the scale for months. Matter of fact, it had been 4 months since I had previously stepped on the scale. The number that I saw that day was about 6 to 7 pounds above where it was the last time I had been on the scale. So I went to the gym that day, I got on the body scanner, and to my surprise, I had added about 6 pounds of body fat and no muscle. That meant my body composition had risen by about 2 to 3 percentage points, up to around 8%. Now, I'm mindful that even 8% is still very lean, and by most objective measurements is still shredded, but I decided I wanted to make some adjustments, since adding 5 pounds of body fat over the past 5 months was not my intention. I would have much rather seen some added muscle mass alongside that body fat to feel okay about it. So here's exactly what I did. Number 1, I measured my body every single day going forward to bring more awareness to the subtle changes that were happening by stepping on the scale without fail for a month. Number 2, I prepared and tracked all of my meals daily. I started by creating a macro and calorie goal that put me in a caloric deficit, and I spread that out over 4 equal meals. Each day, I planned my meals, I prepped them out ahead of time, and I didn't vary this for the entire month. To make things simple, I tried to eat the same things most days. This cuts down on preparation time and daily fluctuations due to digestion. But if you want to have some variety in your diet every day, and also still stick to the same consistent calorie and macro plan, then you might find yourself spending about an hour a day on a fitness or meal tracker app in order to keep track of all these variances. This can be timely and not sustainable. Next up, I had to make peace with the idea of being hungry. When you're going through periods of fat loss and establishing new norms, you will be hungry. I have a mantra that I say sometimes, which is, hunger is not an emergency. You may find yourself going to bed hungry many nights of the week. I would say to myself that if I'm still hungry tomorrow, after breakfast, I can add some calories back in to feel a little bit more balanced. What ends up happening for me is that I will have a periodic fasting window that ends up lasting longer than my hunger wants. And it can be advantageous to use stimulants like coffee to get through those hunger periods. Or I might use 0-calorie beverages like Zevia or flavored sparkling water or sugar-free gum to help get through those periods when hunger starts to ramp up. Now, my aim here was not to make starvation a norm, but simply to accept that hunger doesn't always mean I have to reach for food for satiety. Now, the concept of calorie cycling. Pushing further levels of leanness for me has always been most successful with some level of calorie cycling. I would go through periods of larger deficits and intentional depletion, then follow that up with a surplus of calories to refeed. The goal is to keep overall calories, the averages every single day, still in a deficit, and this will ensure that fat loss is happening. Now, a steady calorie goal every single day might be the simplest way for most people to achieve fat loss. You just eat the same amount day in and day out for the long haul. But many people with very low body fat percentages will end up cycling their calories and macronutrients in order to reach lower levels of body fat. I found this helpful for sustainability on longer deficits when you don't have a ton of body fat already. Now, again, this might look like larger deficits during the week, maybe around 20% of a deficit compared to your maintenance, and then a refeed day on the weekends that is a surplus. This cycle can be challenging, and it leads to fluctuations in energy, mood, hunger, satiety, sleep, digestion, and more. After a big refeed on the weekend, your weight might jump up a few pounds due to water, make you feel bloated, mess up your digestion for several days, and overall, just take a hit to well-being. Personally, I do find calorie cycling to be frustrating and challenging, but at the same time, it's also effective for fat loss. The last thing that I changed is I make sure that I schedule and plan all my activities outside of my normal routines to ensure that food options will be there, and if I need to cut calories or eat differently throughout my day or the week, I can do so accordingly. So if I was gonna go out with friends for dinner next Friday, then I'm already thinking about how to plan for those added calories and drinks that are coming. I might eat a smaller breakfast, I might only eat lean protein for lunch, I may reserve calories for dinner. It always makes it hard in a one-off scenario like this to still avoid overeating. We have such limited control over the calories and the macros that we eat when we go out, and we're not in control of our food. And then, of course, the days that follow a night out will also involve manipulating some meals, macros, and hydration to get back to baseline. And the main takeaway here is that more social engagements are always going to make it harder to maintain lower body fat levels year-round. This 100% compliance period of time that I followed was approximately 5 or 6 weeks long for me, and it felt like it required a substantial amount of heightened brain focus. There was a lot more time investment into preparation of food, and the time I logged on MyFitnessPal every day went up by about 100%. The result was that I did drop those 5 to 6 pounds of body fat, and I kept my muscle mass on. I got my body fat percentage down again. I also got much more committed to tracking my training results, and now I actually have a much more renewed excitement for my training goals. I feel like a new set point has been established again, and a lower point than it was before. I have more consistent habits in place that are easier to do every day since I pushed myself with so much discipline over those 6 weeks. What I want to bring home for you here is that we each have our own journey towards health and wellness. And instead of reaching a particular body fat percentage goal and crossing the finish line, we are in a lifelong ebb and flow of how our food, movement, and lifestyle impacts our bodies. You may have no desire to do some of the things I do to maintain leanness, and that's perfectly okay. Just remember that small choices made consistently do add up, and be sure to consider all aspects of how you move through life rather than focusing solely on diet or training. And as always, let me know what questions you have, and I'll continue to create more resources for you. See you next time.